can ring.
Okay, go.
We are live.
Thanks. Hi, Geraldine. How's it going? Yeah, not bad. Yeah, it was nice.
Hello, viewers.
Good long walk.
This Africa World newspaper.com. I'm Ukachukwu Okorie, editor-in-chief. In the house of Des Mullan. I've been here. Des Mullan is a top Irish journalist. He died and was laid to rest yesterday. I'm here with his son, Garrett. Des Mullan did a lot of works in Africa, particularly in the Irish, during the Biafran War. During the Biafran War and Ethiopian famine. I'm here to look at some of his works. I've been taking lots of pictures, memories are really big enough, and it's quite fascinating, the amount of work he did. That's Garrett. First of all, Garrett, I want the viewers to really know who I am talking to. You are Garrett Mullan, but tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, I'm living here in Balbriggan, Dublin, and my dad was a journalist. He just died the other day. Well, actually last week. We had the funeral on Monday. So
Yeah.
my dad, he was 89 when he died. Born in Cork, grew up in Galway, Ballinasloe, and became a journalist. Worked for the some of the regional newspapers before working for the Irish Press and then the Evening Herald, an Irish Independent.
Okay, that's interesting. And from what I read, your dad had 6 kids.
I have 3 older brothers and 2 older brothers and 3 older sisters.
Where do you belong? Are you the eldest?
I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest. Okay.
Yeah.
Viewers, I hope you're following us. I know many of you will be interested in following this chat and talk. I'm here, just sit back and relax. Garrett will tell us a lot of things. But first of all, Garrett, I don't want to ask you some personal questions, but tell us more where you were born, your dad, how did he start this work of journalism, for your family background, so to say.
Well, for me, I grew up in Howth, County Dublin, and my dad he retired in 1996 from the Evening Herald, and he had been political correspondent for that newspaper for the previous, say, 15, 20 years. And before that, he was assistant news editor and deputy editor as well with that newspaper.
Yeah.
He would have done the reports in the Irish Parliament, interviewing, taking briefings from the government ministers, all that kind of thing. He'd be well known by a lot of the politicians here. And so he grew up in a place called Ballinasloe, which is in Galway.
Okay.
And actually, this here,
Ballinasloe.
Yeah, this here is an article from the local newspaper in Ballinasloe, the Midland Tribune, which is where he started.
He started from Ballinasloe.
Yeah, and it's this article is actually Des Mullan, who's gone on to the Evening Herald Mercy Mission to war-torn Biafra, began his journalistic career with the Midland Tribune in 1953. The now assistant news editor of the Evening Herald was born in Skibbereen, County Cork, and came to Ballinasloe when he was 6 years old, following the appointment of his father, the late Sergeant Jerry Mullan, to the local Garda station.
His dad was a Garda.
Yeah,
I was reading it in the newspaper.
Yeah, so he he was he's the third eldest of a family of 6, reared in Churchill, Ballinasloe, where his mother still resided. This is from 1968. This article.
Yeah.
Educated at Garbley College. He never completed his leaving cert because he contracted TB.
Yeah, I read it for 3 years.
Yeah, he was in hospital for 3 years, and he was among the first to benefit from the new treatments back then in the early 1950s. And he found out about these new treatments through newspapers that relatives of other patients had sent home.
Yeah.
And I think that's what got him interested in journalism, because he found out about this new treatment in a newspaper, and so that gave him some appreciation for the importance of good information.
Yeah.
And then in his last year, or 18 months of recovery, in one of the hospitals, I remember him saying that one of the other patients had a friend or relatives who call in all the time, and this relative was a journalist with a regional newspaper, and he was always telling stories, as journalists do. And my dad got a great buzz off listening to these stories from this other guy, so he thought that journalism would be quite a good career, you know. So he, upon leaving the hospital, he enrolled in the local school, and with all the girls training as secretaries, shorthand and typing.
Yeah, that was what.
So he learned those skills, and then went to work with the local papers, and then later the national newspapers.
Okay, that's interesting. So when did he got into covering the Biafran story in 1960?
So he had. So at that point, he'd been working with the Evening Herald newspaper for about 6 years, probably.
Yeah.
And there was a connection for Ireland with Biafra and Nigeria, because there was hundreds of Christian brothers, priests, and nuns that were from Ireland that were in this country.
Yeah.
And so that was the Irish interest in the story. And so the editor, a guy called Aidan Pender, he asked my dad if he'd go out there. Now, the previous year, my dad had reported on the 6-day war in Israel with the Arab countries. So he'd gone to report on that war. So that was possibly why he was asked to go to Biafra. He probably seemed like the obvious choice to go.
Okay, before we start looking at the archives, did your dad ever had a chat with you on his experiences in Biafra?
Oh, he did. And actually, one of the stories that really affected him was it's actually recorded on a podcast done by Concern, the charity.
I listened to that podcast, and I made a story out of that.
Because if you listen to that, he one of the parts that he just relays a story, very mundane story.
Yeah.
But it's who's the Hannah Arendt, the Jewish writer writing about the Holocaust.
Yeah.
She talked about the banality of evil, and in terms of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And so in Biafra, my dad, talking on this podcast 3 years ago, 2018. 50 years after the war, he talked about going to this village, and they brought some sweets, to give to the kids as well. It was a feeding station where people were getting basic food, and it was a dire situation, and they'd given out all the sweets that they had, and they were driving off, and then this woman with her 3 kids or 4 kids running behind her, they're chasing after the car, and so they stopped the car, and they had nothing left, and she knew what had been going on, and there's some of the pictures there. Actually, I think you'll see that of lots of children being excited for the sweets, just something nice. And she'd asked, have you anything for mine? And he knew they were hungry. And 3 years ago, he was crying about that situation. 50 years later, it was like he felt guilty for not being able to satisfy her. and it's just it's a really hard listen. And yet it's so mundane.
It was really terrible because my parents come from Owerri, the heartland of the Biafran district, fortunately. And then my aunties and my dad told me.
You can open up the leaf. You can take this stuff out.
Can we look at this one by one, because there are many things here. Let's start. Where do we start from?
It's hard to say. So
I want us to take it one by one. They are very interesting pictures. I love the pictures first.
Yeah. So these are some of the pictures from the war.
This one talked about you saved our lives.
Yeah.
Even in Herald relief, thanks from Biafra.
So they went, like, as reporters do, they report on conflicts.
Yeah.
But one of the things they did is they set up the Evening Herald Fund for Biafra to get aid sent to, and it was through an airlift.
Actually, this is very interesting. Is it the Evening Herald, current Evening Herald?
Yeah, the same Evening Herald, yeah. And so these are some of the Irish priests who are based out here, and this one the local priest. And look at the picture.
Yes.
We thank you, Evening Herald, to save our lives. And look at the kids, like they're in an awful state.
Viewers, you can see this is pictures in laminated papers from the Evening Herald. I never knew that the Evening Herald did this. That's I think I'm going to pay a visit to their office. With this thing. This is very interesting. So these are Holy Ghost fathers. Look at protruded bellies of kids. Most of them died, you know.
Of course, yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
it's terrible. Okay.
So he did a series of articles, and this is his the fourth of four articles. It's called The Ingenious Ebo, and he referred to, in one of the
articles. Did you read them yourself, or did he discuss it with you?
Well, he referred to the war that cannot possibly succeed, but does. Now, for so many times it seemed like the Biafrans were defeated. But they kept on fighting back. So there's lots of toing and froing on the front. And this here is an article about British-made bombs, and that's
terrible.
So the Russian-built fighter bomber swept low over the town of Okpala, coming in by the Holy Ghost Mission Center, and dropped the first of its load of British-made bombs half a mile further on.
And you know what? This Okpala is where I told you I attended a seminar built by the Irish missionaries in 1942.
And this here is a picture of Father Gus Finucane.
Yes.
And he was the founder of the charity Concern.
Okay, Concern.
Yeah. So the Finucane brothers.
Okay.
And Gus Finucane and his brother Angus, they also went to Ethiopia later on in 1980s. I'm not sure if they went to the 1970s, but so that's himself there. So
British-made bombs. Drop on a defenseless Biafran town.
The bomb killed one man on the spot, blowing the leg off another, who died an hour later, and blew a 12-year-old boy through a mud house. The boy was not seriously hurt. 12 other children were hit by shrapnel, but their injuries were not serious. The bomber made 2 runs over the defenseless town and dropped 7 bombs. 3 of them vicious anti-personnel explosives, which burst some feet from the ground, spraying death in every direction. And it's later on it's saying here, but Dr. Harry Creeley of Anglesey Road, Ballsbridge, that's Dublin, one of the Evening Herald sponsors, doctors working in the refugee camp, treated the injured children with their cuts and lacerations that they received from the bombing. One little boy missed death by a fraction of an inch when a piece of shrapnel went through the lobe of his ear. Father Sean Broderick of Fecal, County Clare, and Henry Malone of Carlow saw the bomber swoop in and race to the scene of the first explosion. It was a terrible sight. I found one man dead and another in a pool of water with his leg lying across his head. That evening, the photographer John O'Neill and myself were to stay in Okpala with Father Kevin Doheny, but were diverted to Umaha. Some of the children being treated by Dr. Creeley had amazing escapes, but were cheerful as they lined up at his open-air clinic. The three Biafran towns were not like Irish towns. There are no closely packed houses or long streets. Most buildings are well spaced out, except in parts of the main shopping areas of Aba, where there are lines of shanty type shops.
This lesson is a terrible experience. It was. I think that's.
So today in the school at Obodowa, in the bush near
200 children will gather as I saw them 2 days ago. They will sit quiet as mice in their seats, unheeding of the drawing on the walls, the maps, and the colored pictures of animals. The room is much like any Irish national school room, much like that in Raheny, where my own children go each day. That's it's terrible.
So, and he's referring here later, like the Russian support and the British support for the
Nigerian forces. Yeah. It was terrible for the Biafran forces. But have you ever thought about? It was the era of the Cold War that the British, the two enemies came together. To fight against have you ever thought about that? Russia, then it was USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, coming together with their foe. I mean, Britain was on the other side with US, coming together to fight against Biafra. Have you ever thought about that?
We did. Well, not so much that, but more like the Irish attitude, the official Irish attitude, and the official British attitude. Why did the British, support Nigeria over, surely they had left Nigeria in 1960 when they got independence. So why would they still want to support one side over another? And there was interesting debates at the time, apparently, and you do think of the Irish aid and that, you're conscious of that, and other Biafrans are conscious of that, but then there's a more awkward story is the Irish government didn't officially support Biafra, and the Catholic Church didn't officially support Biafra either. It was the more like the grassroots of the church, the clergy, or the grassroots of people responded. And one of the priests, Father Tony Byrne, who was the organizer of the airlift, under the banner of Joint Church Aid, which was nicknamed by the pilots of Jesus Christ Airlines. But he referred to a meeting. He went off to New York to speak to the Jewish community out there, and he was telling about the horrors of Biafra and what was going on, and they just weren't really getting it. Their eyes were glazing over. But then he said that. He said that the Nigerians had made them wear labels to show that they were Biafran. And so for the Jews, they thought of the yellow star, and that was the connection. And then from then on, the Jewish community in New York, they raised a lot of funds. And so likewise in Ireland, you see it in some of the articles, and there's some materials here. Mary Murphy, of this location, donated £5 to Biafra. It was just all those small donations. Ordinary Irish people responding at a grassroots level because of the Irish famine less than just over 100 years previously. But the Irish government didn't actually take a position because there was a reticence, like a hostility to the idea of Biafra declaring independence, because
why?
One of the Fianna Fáil ministers referred to to it, drawing a parallel with Northern Ireland, and surely you want a united Nigeria, not a divided Nigeria. They just didn't recognise that there were different nationalities or different cultures within Nigeria. But so it's that idea of Ireland. We don't want a divided Ireland. We want a united Ireland. So that was the angle that why they were reluctant to take a position. And then the church, Vatican had its own position, but you see the grassroots activity by the priests actually, I suppose it shows sometimes clergy can do really good stuff, and
it's terrible. I mean, what's your dad, this Mullan? How will you describe him as a man regarding his courageous attitude going to a place like Biafra where millions died?
Yeah. Well, he was one of the few journalists that went there, and then the previous year he'd been in Israel for the 6-day war. In 1973 and 84, 85, he was in the Ethiopia to cover the famines there, and he went over to the Philippines as well to cover. There's a story of an Irish priest and who was imprisoned by the regime there, the Marcos regime.
Yeah.
And then there was the uprising against Marcos. So I suppose he put himself in dangerous situations. And when he flew in, they landed at an airstrip, Uli, and they had to turn out the lights in the plane, fly low all the way, so as not to be caught on radar. The plane,
that was high risk,
Yeah, they had to fly at night, and then at the same time, the guys on the ground, they had to turn out their lights for most of it, and just like a split second in order to light up and alert the pilot, and it was all had to be perfectly timed. Otherwise, disaster. And quite a number of planes did crash.
That really showed your dad as a courageous person.
Yeah,
because many wouldn't want to go to a war-torn area, and not only that, going to a place that's considered a rebel zone and a zone where two world powers were bombing steadily. You understand?
Yeah.
So it's something of a high risk. That's why I said, from your how you see your dad. You as a person, how would you describe that?
Well, it's interesting because later on in life, I suppose he was quite cautious. We were even talking about over the last few days about, my sister is in another part of the country, and if the weather was bad, he said, "Oh, don't drive up the roads. The weather is." So he'd be excessively cautious.
Yeah.
Yet on these occasions, year after year, like from the 1960s through to the 1980s, he was in these situations. So I suppose he got to experience life in all its forms. And I know how do you go from this situation, covering the stories of famine, and then taking me to football matches, after school. Or going on holidays, camping, doing ordinary stuff like that.
And I'm just seeing the Cock Rebel is a commando with the Igbos. Did he tell you about the Cock Rebel? Did you observe this particular article?
Do you know, I found all these articles just in the wardrobe, in a complete mess.
Yes, and I decided to.
I kind of organised it in these pockets, but it's sometimes stories are only told in anecdotal form as opposed to any kind of structure. But it's unfortunate that we don't have a name of the guy, but because...
And no picture.
Yeah, no picture, because I suppose for security reasons.
Yes,
he says, the bush road south of Aba, near the town of Assa, which was then in Nigerian hands, was a morass of red mud lashed by a steady stream of rain coming down in solid sheets. "It's worse than at home," laughed a giant Irish commando who was thrown in as lot with the Biafran strike force and whose name must be anonymous, but he is called Paddy by his comrades. Like many a rebel, he is a Cork man. We met him in strange circumstances and in strange company. Big Paddy is second in command to Major Taffy Williams, a lean, hard Welshman, whose men of the 4th Commando Group have been in action so often they do not know what it is to live outside the sound of gunfire. Their shoulder insignia is the skull and crossbones.
That's really brave. Anyway, we'll come to the character of that because I've been here for some years. Before let me get that password again.
Oh,
for the other phone. I want to drop the link to.
What do you want? The Wi-Fi password?
Yeah, for this phone.
Okay, sorry.
Viewers, I'm here with Garrett Mullan, the last son of Mullan, the courageous Irish journalist who was laid to rest yesterday. He was laid to rest yesterday.
Monday.
Okay, on Monday. He died a week ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And he covered the Arab-Israeli war, most importantly the Biafran war with Nigeria from 1967 to 1970, the Ethiopian famine. We've been looking at a few pictures. Just follow africaworldnewspaper.com. We'll get you the full report.
Okay. Small s.
Okay. Small s.
Large or.
Mm-hmm.
Small n, small a. 4, capital K.
Small n.
Small
okay.
a.
Mm-hmm.
4.
Mm-hmm.
Large K. 7. Small v. Large B. H. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Yes, you can get the link and spread it around for those interested in the Biafran case as it hots up now with the restoration march in Nigeria. There's insecurity in Nigeria at the moment. Before we go to the Irish character, have you been following issues with Nigeria? There's a renewed campaign to restore the Republic of Biafra. Are you aware?
I'm aware of the activity of Biafrans in Ireland.
As I'm talking to you now, they are killing this sort of fight. Should I call it skirmish? It's not skirmish because people are dying every day now. Nigerian soldiers and security forces have moved into the Biafran zone, so they're just looking out for young guys. It's not like a full-scale war, but remotely, just like the Biafran situation. Then the major media houses blacked it out.
Yeah.
And
there's no international coverage.
That's why your dad and the likes of your dad, they were very courageous.
Yeah.
What they did then was astonishing. They just came out to push out news against the might of like the BBC.
Yeah.
And go. That is why people like him will always be celebrated, and I know that Biafrans will want to celebrate people like this, and that's why this story will always resonate because there are a few others like him. Now let's get into the Irish character. I've always been inspired here by the history of Ireland. Sometimes when I was in DCU, I did a master's program in DCU.
Yeah.
My classmates were just having a tete-a-tete on the Irish history. I've always admired the course of Irish history because it's not easy to liberate yourself from a big empire like England, the British Empire, that dominated the world at a time. They controlled almost a quarter of the world. So it was tough for Ireland and the Irish people. And sometimes I look at the 1916 Easter Rising and what we have today as the Republic of Ireland. Can you summarize for us, the typical Irish character towards. I know the Cork people will claim to be the rebel county.
The rebels everywhere. Yeah.
So expatiate more on the Irish character.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say. And I often think about Irish history because in Ireland it's told very well. We remember it. And for example, the 100th anniversary of 1916 was celebrated and marked, commemorated in a way that didn't offend Unionists in the North and was. So you seem to respect people of different persuasions, and so there's a perception there that there's a level of political maturity, which is great. But we get a chance in Ireland to learn history in our school books and to discuss it a lot, and it's a core subject on the curriculum. So I think that Irish people do wear their history. Yeah. We're aware of the famine, we're aware of the land war in the 1880s, 1890s, the battle for home rule in the late 19th century into the early 20th century. But I suppose 1 million people did die in the Irish famine, which was in the 1840s, and another 1 million emigrated, and then the population of Ireland is still less than it was in 1840s, and I think it's the only Europe connection. But so there was 8 million on the island of Ireland in 1845. Yeah. Then there's 7 million on the island of Ireland today. So it has been growing in recent years, but it's still actually less than it was 106 years. Yeah. You can imagine. So, but like that for Irish people today, we're a prosperous country, we're wealthy. We wear our history, but that's several generations, and even to that, I sometimes think about 1916, the uprising. Yeah. There was something like 400 people killed in it, and my wife there in the background, she's from Ukraine, and
okay, interesting. Hello, would you come and say hi to?
Hi. Okay. I didn't realise that you're pregnant.
That's interesting.
When you think of a country like Ukraine, which is part of the former Soviet Union, which was part of the Second World War, where 45 million people died, and in the Holodomor in the 1930s, I think 10 million died. Yeah. Huge numbers died. So our numbers. So Irish people wear history well, but sometimes we don't really see the perspective of others, and I think Ireland is a stable country now. Yes. And we get the chance to play our own sports, practice our own language, although the language is dying out, which is unfortunate. But there's dancing, there's Irish dancing, there's Irish music, there's Irish traditions, and they're all reasons to celebrate any given culture. And I think, I suppose the background, then Ireland was perceived as a Catholic country, and one of the interesting things, I suppose, when you look at 1960s, is all these pictures have priests, like here's Father Anthony Byrne, who's actually still alive. He lives in Dublin in a nursing home now, but there's other priests who are still alive, but the Catholic Church has lost a lot of its authority in recent years, and they just don't have the numbers joining the clergy anymore. And so, but having said that, there are Irish charities who are active, in concern. I don't know if they have a presence in Biafra nowadays, but like when you look at,
fortunately,
why did the Evening Herald report the war in Biafra?
Yeah,
because there were so many Irish that were out there at the time. Yeah, and they were all priests, brothers, and nuns, and so for an Irish newspaper, it was good to get a story of Father Tony Byrne or Father Dermot Doran, and on the work that they were doing at the time.
Yeah. Actually, I was taken on a tour at the concern headquarters when I launched this newspaper in 2011. I went to the concern big international headquarters, and they showed me a lot of. But I think I have to take a visit back because you do you know about the clumps? What I don't know how to pronounce it. Clumsilla, the sheep.
Clonsilla?
There.
Oh,
it's a sheep.
The ship that was sent from Dublin.
Yes.
Yeah.
From the money raised for Biafra effort.
Yeah.
Concern bought the ship that they used to ferry food to the Gulf of where from there they fly into the airstrike. Maybe I think that your dad must have taken that route.
He flew Lisbon to Sao Tome.
Okay.
And then Sao Tome to Uli.
Yeah, I think the ship sailed to Sao Tome too. Sometimes.
So is that at the end of the war? Is it?
He said Harrison escaped from death when the federal bomber flying out of range of the anti-aircraft guns and unopposed overhead dropped its 6 blockbuster. And the Biafrans came out from their bunkers at the airstrike. Photographer John O'Neill and myself made a dash for the aircraft, taking us out of Biafra. In 5 minutes and in pitch darkness, we were on our way to Sao Tome. It was really like a movie.
Yeah.
It was like a movie.
Yeah.
And that's why it's very interesting.
This is from the second visit.
Friction over Biafra
1969.
Contract 2008.
So he was there in July 1968 and in February 1969.
Okay.
And
And did he get any personal threats? Because the British establishment, like Frederick Forsyth, to the British guy who covered that too. I thought he must have lost it. He said at the time he was sacked.
That's right, by the BBC.
By the BBC, because the information they gave him prior to his arrival in the Biafra was just not accurate.
Yeah.
On like what he saw on ground.
Yeah, and then he went into fiction writing then after that.
Yeah, because I know the establishment, the Britain gains a lot. Millions, should I say billions of pounds because the oil.
I suppose Britain had its political prestige. They'd lost control of Nigeria in 1960. And then to see the further breakup of the country seemed like an indictment of their rule. And so.
Do you think so?
I would imagine that was part of it as well.
On the political side.
Yeah.
What about on the economic side?
So like, in Biafra, there's a lot of oil in Biafra.
Of course, lots of oil. Biafra is where the oil. That we'll talk about Nigeria as a very rich country, and since the end of the war, trillions of pounds have been stolen.
Yeah.
And up to this day, Nigeria cannot regulate how much output. It just estimates.
Yeah.
And the Biafra and Britain financed the war.
Yeah.
Sending advisors, all the machinery, even Russia. That was.
Well, I seen a story there that the U.S. government had just offered something like €10 million or dollars for information on that would lead to the arrest of the Venezuelan president. It's like, stop interfering in other people's countries. And when you look around the world, oil is no matter how much there is, and how good a resource it could be for a country. The only country it seems to have benefited is Norway. Norway has become a wealthy country on account of oil, but few others have.
But why they wouldn't allow countries, poor countries in Africa, to manage their resources?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Because it was in Colonel Ojukwu and others, they were trained in the British institution.
He was in Oxford.
Yeah.
And Eton.
He went to Eton.
Wow. Yeah, he was in Eton before he
went. The same as Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because his dad was the first the millionaire in West Africa. So but Ojukwu, he didn't want to get into his father's business. He wanted something to do with the people.
Oh, really?
And he was very courageous. It was really bad. It was.
So this looks like.
Yeah, viewers, were back. I'm still with Garrett Mullan, son to this Mullan, the Irish veteran journalist that just passed away. I'm in Garrett's place with all the archives, documented articles of his dad's great work around the world, in Africa particularly, with the Biafra Nigeria war between 1967 to 1970. Garrett, we'll come to the. Do you have any story on the Ethiopian?
Ethiopian. I do have.
But we'll finish this first.
Yeah, okay. Ethiopia is somewhere in the.
There are a lot of things on the Biafra, so it could take us the whole day and the week, but we'll just try to be as fast as possible. Already, we have streamed for 44 minutes.
Yeah, this is from June 1st, 1969. It's an address to the nation by Colonel Ojukwu.
Okay.
And it's published by Mark Press, based in Geneva, the press agency of the Biafran government.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's thanking the allies. Is it Tanzania, Gabon, Ivory Coast,
Zambia, and Haiti. Okay.
Yeah.
The countries that supported Biafra.
Yeah.
There was division in Africa then because Britain used her influence on the former colonial territories,
Thank you for your absolute commitment to the cause, for which our youth are making daily the supreme sacrifice, and a cause for which we have all been dispossessed, blockaded, bombarded, starved, and massacred. I salute you for your tenacity of purpose and amazing steadfastness under siege. He's very good with words, isn't he?
Yeah, he's an orator and a courageous guy. Viewers, this an address to the nation by His Excellency General Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, Head of State and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces Republic of Biafra, on Thanksgiving Day, June 1, 1969. On June 1, 1969, Thanksgiving Day, he started with proud and courageous Biafrans, fellow countrymen and women. I salute you.
Look at this. Interesting. These are various different press releases. British peace stunt. It's having a go of Harold Wilson.
Yes.
And this one here on the Soviet revisionism and the Biafran Revolution. Of course, Soviets are well known for revising history.
Yes, that is.
It's the military aid of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics to Nigeria against Biafra is a criminal offspring of Soviet revisionism.
Yeah.
In complete violation of Marxism-Leninism. The USSR opportunists joined the Anglo-American imperialists to deny Biafra the right to self-determination.
And to supply the lethal weapons for the genocidal.
Lenin made it very clear on the issue of self-determination, dealt with through his book Critical Remarks on the National Question and the Right of Nations to Self-Determination. Yeah, so he's really giving it back at them.
Yeah, of course, because you see, that's why they said dogs of war.
Yeah.
Men go against the ideology. What was the ideology of the USSR? They said it was all of them fought German dictatorial tendencies of Hitler, and they are here denying Biafra its right of existence.
Full account of Biafra's military and air achievements. So it's 1969. It's June 1st, working
on troops of capture of Forola, south of Owerri.
From June to October.
This is an important town from where.
You're from?
Well, Forola. The famous NTU center also seized. Enemy fled to Ohuba. June 6, Owerri sector, own land forces, disorganized enemy, capturing Umuanika and Umuneke.
June 18th, Biafran Air Force struck the Ugeli Oil Control Center in the Republic of Benin.
Two vertical bulk tanks and technical equipment on the ground set ablaze.
Yeah.
Onitsha sector on June 19. Own troops captured Boromeo Hospital in Onitsha town. It's an old hospital. Onitsha Girls Secondary School, Mbo Junction, and Afo Mbo Market, thereby creating a limited corridor on Onitsha Enugu Major Road. Large quantities of stores and equipment captured. 4 enemy vehicles destroyed. This is very,
So this is in the later part of the war, so they're able to get some semblance of forces. They weren't completely defeated, or
no. Actually, Biafra fought against two world powers, because if Britain and Russia weren't involved,
it's the same as like Syria today. Left alone, if the Russians didn't interfere, if the Americans didn't interfere, if the Iranians didn't interfere, and the Lebanese didn't interfere, the Syrians would have overthrown Assad a long time ago. And you know, now it's a hellhole.
Yeah.
And we have Syrians living in Ireland, and we have Biafrans living in Ireland.
Terrible. Indeed. I'm looking at this secret document. Viewers, this is a document from the government of the Republic of Biafra. Is a permission to travel abroad. Permission is hereby granted for the following persons to travel abroad and to use our transport facilities to Lisbon. Mr. Des Mullan, and that's his dad. You know, he was laid to rest on Monday. And Mr. John O'Neill, they proposed to travel on Friday night, the 23rd August. This is a secret, is a Biafran government document. State House, Enugu, 20th August 1968. Major G.C. Akabog, Transport Division, State House, care of Mbudi Postal Agency. It was signed by Secretary to the Head of State, G.A. Nwanze, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Commonwealth Relations, Enugu. That's your dad's picture with General Ojukwu.
Yeah, so it's at the end of the war, I think, 1970 maybe.
Okay. Where do you know where they took this picture?
I don't know. I don't know where he took it.
It was really
9 million.
9 million refugees. To tell you that many died, they keep bringing down the number of the people that were massacred. Yeah. Local statistics put it at over 5 million. But you know,
so
the press.
This is an Irish newspaper.
So
9 million.
You can imagine 9 million refugees. A lot of people died. There's no family in Biafra that didn't lose. So
you know, you asked me about the character of Ireland. We know a history of nearly absolutely everybody who died in 1916.
You see,
and you know, yet history in Ukraine or history in Biafra, it's contested.
Yes.
You know, 3 million died, 5 million died. You know, X million were made refugees. What's the truth? How many? Who's keeping numbers? And that's a sad thing, because just history is denied to people.
Yeah. Did we look at that?
So these are
dramatic photo scenes.
So the photo page.
These are good. The horror of Biafra. It's terrible, really terrible. Look at your dad with soldiers. Des Mullan, Evening Herald assistant news editor, talking to Biafran troops near the Assaf front with Herald photographer John O'Neill. He toured the war zone and refugee centers. Welshman Major Taffy Williams with some of his Biafran officers at a post near the front of Asa beyond Aba. Most of these people died. Some still. My dad said he was terrible then. He lost his cousin and uncle.
So There's quite a bit of Ethiopia.
Questions in the, okay, this is Ethiopia. Okay.
Yeah.
The famine in Ethiopia.
Yeah, he reported there from 1973 and then again 1984. It's very small writing. Let's see if I can find.
Your dad did a lot of work, and it's good that he kept the records out there.
Oh, I think my mother did that.
Okay, many of these journalists, they have lots of things in their head.
So here's his expense claim to the job. You know, when a journalist he has to keep the expenses and receipts. So it's a taxi to the press centre, telex charges.
Yeah.
Share taxi with Daily Mirror. You know.
Yes. Okay.
These are expenses from Israel. Yeah.
Okay, during the Arab Israeli
war. Lunch with Egyptian army escort, £4. £4 was probably half a week's wages back then.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it wasn't really easy.
Taxi press center and telex operator charge refreshments with Egyptian officials, £4.
Yeah.
Interview Egyptian Chief Information Officer, taxi £1. Taxi to the press centre, telex charge £3.50. Okay, lots of taxi receipts.
That's really nice. I like these records.
Just the ordinary stuff.
Yes, very interesting.
He has funny stories about journalists and the way they claim expenses.
I know. But the risk they take.
I used to work in a place called Usher's Island in Dublin, and it's not an island. It's a quay along the riverside.
Yeah.
And he was telling me a story of a Daily Express journalist from Britain who was based in Dublin.
Yeah.
And he wanted to fill out his expenses, so he said he had to hire a boat to get to Usher's Island, but it's not an island. So there's the article along with the photograph of him interviewing the troops.
Which one?
With the troops. Let's see what. The stage was set for a major upheaval in Nigeria as soon as the British announced impending independence in 1959. The elections initiated by the British administration resulted in a coalition with an Igbo president and a northern prime minister, and was designed to control the ambition of rivals groups. The Northerners had a majority, and the opposition was led by Chief Obafemi
of the Yoruba tribe.
Yeah. There you go. I recognise the Queen and all that. Yeah. The trouble came in May 1962 when Chief Awolowo, Obafemi followers tried unsuccessfully to overthrow the premier of the Western region, who had broken with Awolowo.
Joined with North under the Southern of Sokoto, a member of the Fulani tribe.
And leader of 27 million Muslims.
You see, that's the problem. That is in Nigeria. Many don't really know the story, but the British know. There's this ethnic group. They are migrants. They migrated from the Sahel, the Fulanis. And before the British came, in the 18th century, early 18th century, they came to the north and conquered the major tribe there called the Hausas, and forced them to Islam, Islamized them. So, and we are pushing, but they were stopped. It was then the British now came. When the British came, the British now fought them and defeated them and got into a pact with them to introduced a system called the indirect rule. So they give power to these Fulanis who are not indigenous in the land that is called Nigeria. They came originally from the Futajalon, Guinea area.
Guinea, okay.
And defeated the Hausas and now the British gave them power and tailored all the structures of governance to favor them against the southern tribes. And if you come to Nigeria now, we have in the northern part of Nigeria and the southern part of Nigeria, there are in the north. The north have more tribes than the south. But unfortunately, you see what the British did. The British, because the northern part of the country is very poor, all the resources, most of the resources are found in the south. They now came to the south and divided the southerners in order to have access to the resources. That is why you see them fighting against Biafra, because the Biafra have all the oil.
Your resources,
So, and they give power to the Fulanese. They tailored everything to favor the Fulanese because they reached a pact with the Fulanese. The Fulanese are not indigenously Nigeria. They are just invaders of the houses, you understand? And they now give them power and give them all there's what we call new colonialism. After slavery, you know about the slavery? Then the colonial powers came into Africa and started colonizing. And when they gave independence to the country they formed in Berlin, they now made sure that they left their stooges to be in charge. And that's what we're having today.
And what's the circumstances today? Is it like, you know, if you're a young person growing up in Port Harcourt,
you see, that's why some of us, you see us in Dublin, you understand? Despite the fact that we're all well educated, well read, I've written many books, I've published 7 books, and when you go back home, just look at, you talk to a Nigerian, for instance, somebody who calls himself a Nigerian may talk to you smartly, but when you look at the leadership, it's just zero. The leadership. There's no good road. No you imagine.
As I said, my wife is from Ukraine, and again, very well educated people, but the country is corrupt. So how is that situation? In Ireland, we have decent education and good and bad people, but generally things work. You know?
But it took it took the courageous actions from some Irish guys in 1916. Mind you, some people they put their lives at stake in 1916 for Ireland, for it to trigger Irish independence.
So Biafra, they declared independence in 1967
and lost more than 5 million people. And today again, our generation, you know, have started again. We want freedom.
And do you think there will be another declaration, or
there's already
at that time Ukachukwu was kind of a premier of the region. And is there like for example, is it a stooge of the current Nigerian government who's a governor, or is it an advocate of the Biafrans who's a leader?
Exactly, that's part of the problems we have now. After the war that your dad covered, you see everything is documented here. We lost the war to Britain and Russia and Egypt. All these powers came together. We didn't lose the war to the Fulani. The Fulani are migrant sects. You understand? But they are just doing the bidding of the British. But because they are not sincere, because they are just there to rape the land and the economy, that's why you see Nigerians are scattered all over the world. You understand? Bringing the bad attitude, the corrupt lifestyle, because the system, the foundation is faulty. So when the foundation is faulty, the people will learn bad things. You understand? Because in Nigeria, for you to survive, you have to get involved in
dodgy stuff,
dodgy things. You understand? So they take these dodgy things everywhere. It's survival of the fittest. So that's why, and because of Biafra, they now carved Nigeria in a state-like structures, you know, in a way that will make sure that the Biafrans don't have they're not they don't have that cohesion to fight back. But that is what today we have a group now called the IPOB. Started by one Nnamdi Kanu, and before him, actually, the issue of Biafra is in the heart of every Biafran, but he has added bites to it by mobilizing, and it's resonating among the people, and now
there's active groups internationally, and they can help.
Of course, but the international community doesn't want to do anything because one, they're all ripping
off.
Because Biafra is very rich.
But
extremely rich.
I think influence can be brought to bear in Western countries because fundamentally, like France, Britain, they hate immigration, or people coming from other countries. So if you want a stable world, you need to stop ripping off poor countries. You need to support them to have a good, you look at Central America and what the migration going from the central to the north.
I think
if so many people weren't dying in these countries, they wouldn't have to leave.
Exactly. I think this is a very sound argument. Sometimes I made this argument, but I'm still going to raise it back again.
And I think that's the argument you can have with Irish politicians, British politicians,
EU,
French, EU, with the EU Parliament, you have the MEPs. Talk to each one of them and their groups, and
because it's terrible. It's terrible at the moment. The rate Nigerians are immigrating out of the country, and this is a country of more than about 200 million people.
It was a case 30 years ago, young people in Ireland would emigrate, and that's the future for them. But people tend to want to live at home, don't they? Wherever they're from.
There's no place like home. You understand? When you're at home, you feel secure. Even if you have enemies around you, this is your ancestral land. You have that kind of peace. Many people will die abroad, but they will say, "Look, if I die, take me back home." You understand?
So I think you look at, say, Syria, you look at Biafra, interference by outside governments really messed up the situation.
Seriously.
And same with America, using their military might. Don't use your military might, use your people might and your money might, and help do good things, and people, get the best out of people. Don't work with people who are going to rip you off. Work with people who are going to help alleviate the situation. But it doesn't need to work like that.
That is greed. Look at what I'm seeing. This Captain John Moore Center, whose grandfather was an Irish doctor, with some of his Biafran commandos in their Assad front.
So Captain John Moore Center. See, he looks.
This is black and white picture. He could be mix of
Biafran and Irish Welsh.
Yes.
Irish. Because his grandfather was an Irish doctor who did some of the Biafran commandos. Foley, Holy Ghost Father, Kevin Dohan,
he was a former rector in my school.
Giving blessings to Biafran soldiers.
It wasn't really easy, It wasn't easy. Okay. Anyway, that's I think we have really done it. Any other?
I'll have a quick look and see.
Okay.
I think I have a couple of folders elsewhere with more material.
What do you know? What is this?
So that's an aid plane, and some of the photographs here are better. Sorry. That's him with some other journalists, I think, just having a break, having their tea break. So that's him himself and the photographer.
Okay, the photographer. Okay.
Yeah.
Where is your dad here?
That's my dad, and that's the photographer.
Okay.
Actually, I'll have it on my phone. I'll show you the aid plane. I've got a better picture of that because one moment. So he's with some. That's my dad there with the shades on.
Is it on the Biafran?
Yeah, and it's on an aid flight and with some other journalists and a couple of priests.
Do you want to send it to me?
Yeah, I'll send it.
That would be nice.
Okay.
I forgot to even keep sharing.
Sorry?
I wanted to share, if I just shared one and forgot, there are a lot of fascinating pictures and stories. And
sorry.
So your dad retired in
1996.
1996. And he did many other work for Reverend Okorie. We've looked at this.
The big Irish man playfully handcuffed a 15-year-old commando. It turned out he was one of the boy colonels, a special rank created for them. The boy commandos have been honoured for their work behind enemy lines, pinpointing positions, right?
The commando that wasn't named.
By his side, okay, we'll go back to earlier in the article. The Irish Biafran. This is a dirty war being fought against an innocent people, and that's why I came back. By his side was Captain John Moore, a Biafran whose grandfather was an Irish doctor. Major Williams said grimly when I asked him about casualties, "We have one or two, but we have sent a good many Nigerian souls to heaven too." His commandos, some weighed down with belts of machine gun ammunition over their shoulders, Sterling submachine guns or Spanish automatic rifles stood around. They are fine troops, and they know they are fighting for their homes and their families. The Nigerians, known to the commandos as the Vandals, are finding life in the bush difficult. Some strange things happen in this war. At the Imo River, Nigerian officers shouted across to the Biafrans for a truce. General Gowan is in Lagos in his big house smoking a cigar, drinking brandy. Ojukwu, he is in Umuahia in his big house. Why should we fight and kill each other? And the lull in the fighting lasted about one day. The big Irishman playfully cuffed a 15-year-old commando. It turned out he was one of the boy colonels, special rank created for them. The boy commandos have been honoured for their work behind enemy lines, pinpointing positions. They go in as refugees and get information about the size and strength of the Nigerians. Major Williams said they get much of their arms and ammunition from the Nigerians. We got 20 boxes today. Compliments, Mr. Wilson.
Exactly.
Harold Wilson.
Exactly. Nigeria, that was my dad told me that the Nigerians acted as their quartermaster generals.
Yeah.
Because what this guy was doing, that was what my dad did.
Yeah.
He worked for the Biafra intelligence, going behind the enemy lines.
If British taxpayer only knew where his money was going, he's joking. The boxes were captured in an ambush. Major was among those who retook the town of Ekpene, where some of the worst sights of the famine and war were seen. We found the jail packed with dead. The streets were littered with them, with dead people. Many had bullet holes in them, children and women. We found some women and a few old people in the bush. They were emaciated. The Igbos can expect no mercy from the Vandals, he said. They mow down everything that moves. This is according to the order of Colonel Adekunle, the Black Scorpion, who has publicly stated that he will kill every Igbo.
Yes, it's on record, even online. Terrible.
The ingenious Igbo. Yeah. Yet the Biafrans mastered the technology and essential processes sufficiently to get their own supplies flowing again. Now in the last month, the rate of production has almost doubled since a new team of oil workers brought 2 more wells into production. So much petrol was being refined that for the first time since the fall of Port Harcourt, the government was able to allocate a small ration for the distribution of relief supplies. That was at the start. One of the companies was Shell. They said that they would do business with Biafra and they would pay taxes. But then the Nigerians, it was a blunt military force forced Shell to change their minds.
Yeah. Shell originally started from my hometown, Owerri, but during the war they moved them to the neighboring town in Iguacha. They renamed it Port Harcourt, the British. Yeah. Like you have the Harcourt Street. Yeah. The secretary to the colonial territories. Yeah. During that time, they built
Lord
the port.
Harcourt.
Lord Harcourt. They now named it Port Harcourt. Yeah. Have you ever heard of that city in Nigeria?
No, well, I've seen it on the map. Okay, yeah. And that was the initial capital of Biafra, was it?
No, it's on the ocean. We call it Iguacha. Yeah. Iguacha. But the British renamed it Port Harcourt. Mm-hmm. So interesting. I think we have done a lot. I want to do a short rundown on Facebook now, and we'll cap it up.
So you see this here? Okay. This is it's a letter. It looks like, or a telex from Father Dermot Doran, who rang me the other day.
Okay, the priest you were telling me.
Yeah. Really nice man. And actually, here's a good article as well. The first of the Evening Herald Mercy planes.
Okay, Mercy planes, yeah.
So the Evening Herald newspaper sent over planes and they sent over doctors. The air tourist plane Monarch of Munster being loaded at Dublin Airport for Lisbon with vital food supplies for Biafra, the first consignment sent by the Evening Herald UNICEF Biafra Fund. Today we can disclose the arrangements have been arranged to rush further supplies to starving Biafra without delay. Yeah. Nuns fight to save babies.
Nuns fight, okay.
There's Father Dermot Doran, being mentioned again. As I say, I only spoke to him the other day, 50 years later. Okay. Who's that?
Viewers, how are you doing? I hope you've been following. It's been over an hour chat with Garrett, Mullan, son to Des Mullan, the Irish journalist that covered the Biafran genocide, the war between 1967 to 1970. He was laid to rest on Monday. He did other landmark coverage and reports, including the Arab-Israeli War in 1967, and the Ethiopian famine. He was laid to rest on Monday. I'm in the home of his last son, Garrett, Mullan. It's been we've been streaming for 1 hour 17 minutes, Garrett. We'll soon cap it up better because there are a lot to see here, a lot of work. He died. Your dad, how many years did he work as a reporter?
Oh, from the late 1950s to 1996.
Okay. To 1990, so that's how many decades?
4
decades. Yeah. You see, over 40 years of his work as a journalist. So I don't know where we'll start. We could talk about him for days and weeks and months and years. And that's, sorry, I think we will be bringing more report with time. I have many pictures here. You can ruminate over our discussions while he's showing me. We've been having it's just like a freestyle discussion. We don't want it so much choreographed. Good thanks to social media now that we can now relax and talk about things.
Do we know?
We will know after this. I decided to stream it on YouTube. Like I keep telling you, there have been restrictions on Africa World Newspaper. We don't know. We are reporting it as it is, just like you've seen me with Garrett. No holds barred, no censorship. And he's going to be like his dad, a chip of the old block, is it not so?
That's
So,
yeah.
so and Garrett ran for elections. He ran for elections in
local elections.
Local elections.
He's of the social try again.
Yeah, he's going to try again. So those are in Ireland. Which constituency?
The Balbriggan, yeah.
Okay, Balbriggan.
I'm sure there's Biafrans living
there. Yeah, there are many Biafrans living. So you should be doing Garrett a payback for his dad's services by voting for him in his next election.
Well, they call that nepotism, don't they?
It all depends. I don't know, but for you being the son of Des, I think that fearlessness should be in you. Where I come from, we have a tradition. If you want to get married, the elders have to go to investigate where you are going to seek the hand of your partner. Do you know why they do this investigation? They want to see who his lineage, what is it like? Do they have criminals in there? Do you do sort of a thing here?
Not exactly, no.
Is his father a brave man?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah. So that's why, names sometimes is important because it's all about blood. If your father can do this kind of thing, which means you should be bold enough. And his wife is Ukrainian, so you should know his kind of person. So we have done a lot. I want to do a quick recap of it on Facebook.
Okay, yeah.
In the home of Ukachukwu.
This failed. So what's your you're in Facebook? Am I friends with you on Facebook?
Yes. No, I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. Or email. I'll send it to your email address.
Okay. Do you want to send it on WhatsApp? You can check me on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay.
Facebook UK or WhatsApp.
Okay. WhatsApp.
That one is handy.
What number on WhatsApp?
0899 756.
So how do I send a new text then?
Do you have my number on WhatsApp? Okay, that's not a group. Did I call you on WhatsApp?
You called me on the normal phone.
Okay, on the normal phone. I thought that I sent you a message on WhatsApp. Did you store mine?
You sent me
if you stored it. Okay. If you restore it.
I'll send it to you on email, yeah.
Okay. You have my email?
No.
Okay, africaworldnews@gmail.com.
Yeah, we've talked for a while, haven't we?
Yeah, of course. We're going to round up now.
Right.
Have you finished filming?
Yeah. Finished, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you were filming.
It's okay.
Did you complete it? Yeah.
Yeah, you can sit down.
Oh, very good. Well done.
Viewers,
She's very handy. You're
yeah,
good at the
yeah,
DIY.
yeah, I know. Viewers, this is just a quick recap of our 1 hour 23 minutes, 20 minutes streaming on YouTube. That's Garrett Mullan. Garrett Mullan is the son of Des Mullan, who just died in Dublin. Dublin. Garrett Des Mullan is a renowned reporter in the Republic of Ireland. He reported on the Ethiopian famine, the 1967 to 1970 Biafran Nigeria war, and we have been looking at lots of document pictures. I'm going to publish it. I took pictures of them. Some of them, for want of time, we couldn't take a look at. Garrett, I remember when I came on, you brought this, but you didn't
explain.
Explain.
So that looks like.
I know the town. I know this town. Amimo.
Yeah.
In Ikedu, 5 villages: Umuri, Obodo, Umuofo, Amozo, and Umueze, Ebulu, and Amachara.
So that looks like either his notes or the notes by one of the priests or nuns, maybe, who were based in Biafra at the time.
Okay.
Covering the population of Umuri, for example, 3,349. Of that, 844 are refugees, 214 hungry. So these are the kind of notes that they're just taking all the time. And sick and hungry adults, 331, starving, 110, in total, 849, out of a population of 14,000. So
you can see what happened.
So sick and hungry, 1,500. So 2,500. Oh, look, 3,000. No, 4,000 or 5,000 actually, really, out of 14,000. 1/3 are in a bad situation.
Yes.
This here is an article actually from from Dermot Dorn, as he was the man who called me a few days ago. So he's still alive. The deaths in the last week of September of 5 crew members in the Joint Church Aid USA Strato freighter that crashed while attempting to land food and medicine at the Ulai airstrip upgrades once more the continuing tragedy of Nigeria Biafra. 28 months ago, Biafra seceded from the Federation of Nigeria and a bloody civil war broke out. Fighting has continued ever since. Thousands of lives have been lost. Thousands more have been permanently disabled and maimed. But the real tragedy is that an estimated 1.5 million deaths by starvation of children, women and old people. This war has been described by various names: civil war, tribal war, war of survival, and so on. To my mind, it might more aptly be named the Children's War, because it is the children of Biafra who have been and still are the principal victims of this strife. So,
letter to the editor. We'll look at this. Office of the High Commissioner for Refugees, Libreville, Gabon.
So that's number of children arrived. So this is December 1970s. So that's 10 months, 11 months after the war has ended, isn't it? It ended in January 1970. And so still refugees are disposition of the children repatriated to Nigeria. Okay, so they're being sent back from number of children arrived 1958. Handed back to the parents, 1350. Number of children remaining in the centre, 608.
Number of children remaining at Mbidi Centre. Number of children remaining at Nguru Centre. Number of children remaining at Azumini.
Number of River State.
Number of children
arrived 307. Number of children handed to parents, 17. So they remained in the as orphans, maybe, you know.
Yes. Number of children remain at Port Harcourt Centre, 219. Total arrivals to parents in centres. Terrible. What's that?
Survival again. Do you want to read that? Yeah.
Okay, no, I just want to take a picture. Yeah. I'm just taking a picture of
three children. These children are typical of the hundreds we saw in Ohaji.
Ohaji, yeah.
They can be classed as lucky because they now get medical treatment and food at the sick bay in Isombe, set up by Father John Doyle of Oguta.
Oguta, yeah. I know Oguta. That's why the Irish built a school where my dad.
Biafra my dad gives a first-hand report of a war that cannot possibly succeed, but does.
Yeah.
Biafra is another world, blockaded, besieged and tortured. Frightful hunger decimates its people. Terror rocketing, strafing and bombing takes its toll in human flesh, and along the battle lines, now stretching in a great semicircle around its diminished perimeter, death is commonplace, and the vultures grow even more loathsomely fat.
You can imagine.
But Biafra survives against all impossible odds. All but abandoned by the free nations of the world, she fights her lone battle, sustained by one slender archery pumping a sluggishly flow of fodder for the community and cannon alike. Not enough to enable her to fight a decisive battle, but sufficiently prolong her agony indefinitely.
By all the laws of war. Biafra really suffered.
Yeah.
They suffered, but it's all good.
So that's himself meeting some of the troops. The author of the article with Biafran troops. That's my dad there in the bush.
With Biafran soldiers.
Port Harcourt was fortified, and Ojukwu enrolled German mercenary Rolf Steiner and about 100 mercenaries to strengthen his army. By January and February, the Federals were entrenched in the north and west of Biafra. The first dread sign of kwashiorkor, the famine disease, appeared as a mass starvation took hold. There was heavy bombing of Umuahia, Aba and Owerri, and many civilians were killed. Enraged Igbos retaliated by killing non-Igbos suspected of helping the Federals. The first country to recognize the Republic of Biafra was Tanzania, and this was coast and Zambia. In May, Colonel Benjamin Ajunkli, the Black Scorpion, as he was called, took Port Harcourt with his 3rd Marine Commando, and Biafra was reduced to 1/3 of its original size. Peace moves in Uganda failed, and the war went on. Starvation became widespread, and food supplies through airstrip Annabelle at Uli were the only source of relief.
Stories of Biafra.
So, have you met Father Tony Byrne? Have you?
Yeah, no, you said that you don't give me.
He wrote a book. He wrote a book called Airlift to Biafra.
But that's interesting.
Yeah, you can.
I'm going to talk to him.
Biafran priest at a wedding.
Biafran priest at a wedding.
I'm not sure that's about. The story of a Dublin woman, an Irish woman. One of Ireland's most famous footballers is Paul McGrath.
Paul McGrath.
And I don't know where his dad is from within Nigeria, but it's a story of his dad.
The Irish woman. And her kids.
Her kids. So
when are they? Do you know?
So she grew up in Fairview in Dublin, near the inner city, and married a Nigerian Biafran, while he was studying at Trinity College in 1953, and he went to live in Enugu. But the family had to flee home, leaving all their possessions with a din of gunfire in their ears as federal Nigerian troops attacked the city. Mrs. Mambolo, and her children stayed for a time with her husband's people in the town of Orlu, to the south of the country, and for the past few months has been at the Bishop Shanahan College in Orlu. Yeah, so it'd be interesting with that.
I know the college. Yeah.
Geraldine, Carmel with her children, Geraldine, David, and Robert at Bryan Road in Fairview. So maybe we'll have to today.
I live in Fairview.
Oh right, I live in Fairview. Yeah. So
that was the first place I lived.
And wouldn't it be amazing to see if any of these kids are alive today? So
yes, that's an interesting thing. And
like this boy, he's what, 7 and he's 8. So 7 in 1968. Add on 53 years. Is it 65?
Who knows?
So coming up to retirement. Yeah. Maybe he's, I don't know if they're still in Ireland or if they're somewhere else.
Yes, because
maybe they went back to
the story of Biafra is it's terrible what they did to Biafra, but Biafra will return because the current generation are helping bringing it back, and Nigeria, the center can no longer hold the way we are seeing things by God's grace. Because Nigeria has disappointed not only Africa, but its people. And the British, what do you think? The British, the way they are today, they're no longer as strong as they used to be.
Yeah. So, like, although, the Israeli government have been bombing Palestine and using British-made bombs, and here's British-made bombs dropped on a defenseless Biafran town. So, the Russian-built fighter bomber, using British-made bombs. So an ally of East and West during the Cold War, working to.
This flight, what is it?
So that's the aid flight.
Okay, aid flight.
I guess that's before they got onto the flight.
Okay. And I like this picture of your dad with General Ukachukwu.
Yeah.
You have some pictures there?
Yeah, I have. Where do I have? So that's with the troops, and that's good. That's himself with. Actually, I think we have it. So that picture, I'll find the details about it in one moment. If you want to look at something else, and I'll just talk about the picture that. Oh, they're sitting in the plane.
State moving to protect missionary state. 9 million refugees, nuns flee. It was really terrible. Do you know Bishop Mullan? Have you ever heard of Bishop Mullan?
Bishop Mullan, yeah.
From Limerick. He was the first Catholic bishop in my town, the cathedral, Sumter Cathedral. I looked it up, Irish Independent, in the podcast, they published pictures of him. He was expelled in Nigeria. They even locked him up.
Yeah. Yes, so there's a picture, and on the way to Biafra from Sao Tome, an aid flight landing at Airport Annabelle on Ulai Strip, essentially above a stretch of 12 feet of clearance, to be met by Holy Ghost priest Father Tony Byrne from Dublin and the airport priest Father Joe Prendergast, described by the New York Times reporter Michael Mock as a knob-nosed, chain-smoking Dubliner, tough enough to spit tax.
Brave men all. No, it's really interesting. That's one of the. That's why Biafrans love the Irish, irrespective of the fact that history, people don't keep history. But with this kind of memory, you can revisit history and know why Ireland is in our hearts. Because many of us who are born, who are the new generation after the war, we wouldn't have come out if this kind of brave activities didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because most of us, our relatives, our uncles suffered kwashiorkor.
They died.
They died and all those things. During our aunts and mothers were raped.
Yeah.
We talk less about these things, but there are a lot of social issues, economic issues, physical issues, and things like that.
Okay.
So far, I think, Garrett, you've been so wonderful. This kind of discussion, I have a first degree history. I would love to talk. If you leave me, I would love to look at these things the whole day and the whole week, because these things are priceless. And hopefully, when Biafra is restored, there'll be a street named after your dad. No, because it's important. That's why people should always stand for justice, stand for good work. Oftentimes, these works are not repaid immediately. You understand? But generations benefit from that. And this is why it's always good to come from a very strong lineage and character. Your dad he was exceptional while alive. His work speaks volume about his activities, about his brave commitment to his profession and to the downtrodden. Because I have just imagining, standing up as a journalist, going to cover a war where the side is the underdog.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? It tells of courage.
Yeah.
Because he could easily be shot. Okay, look at the Annabelle at the airport only. How the flights come down,
in the dark.
land in the middle of darkness.
Yeah.
Light just gets on. Maybe within 5 minutes, they land
and being shot at
exactly
at the same time.
So that's why he must have to be praised, even in death. And I know Biafrans do appreciate this. This is an address. If you're watching, you can share this video from Facebook. Facebook keep restricting.
So
hair-raising escape from
this
death.
is I think his last article.
Or from Biafra. Hair-raising escape.
When the federal bomber flying out of range of anti-aircraft guns and unopposed overhead dropped in at 6 blockbuster and the Biafrans came out from their bunkers at Ulai airstrip, photographer John O'Neill and myself made a dash for the aircraft, taking us out of Biafra. In 5 minutes and in pitch darkness, we were on our way to Sao Tome. It was a hair-raising and spectacular send-off from this incredible conflict in which federal and Biafran troops at the front call off the firing for midday chop, and an obsolete DC-4 appears over the airstrip every night at the same time to drop 6 bombs on it. For weeks, the bomber brought its usual quota of 6. On a Monday night, it surprised everybody by bringing 9 and caught the Mercy aircraft off guard. 4 of them were hit, only one put out of action. There is general disgust amongst the pilots and the crewmen at the failure of the Biafrans to deal with the federal bomber, now nicknamed inappropriately the Intruder. The anti-aircraft guns are completely ineffective, and the Biafrans merely use them to keep the bomber up high. Heavy machine guns send streams of tracer shells about halfway up.
It wasn't really easy
because they didn't have decent equipment.
Yes, of course, no equipment. Because Britain and Russia, supplied. They said all the remnant of the arms left by Britain during the Second World War, all were moved into Nigeria to fight against the British.
Mark Press is like the equivalent of TASS. The Russian government have TASS as their press agency. Mark Press was the Biafran Overseas Press Division. And this here is a statement on June 1st from Colonel Ojukwu, an address to the nation. Yeah. So he's saluting people for their courage, recognising their sacrifice, thanking their friends in Tanzania, Gabon, Ivory Coast, Zambia and Haiti. And shamelessly our enemy has moved from deadline to deadline and, you know, lamenting the situation. And different press releases issued during the course of the conflict over the role of the British, and then there's another one on the role of the Russians, and they're very critical. And
the Mark Press, do you know, is it Swiss or?
Well, I don't know whether it was a Biafran, but it was based in Geneva.
Okay, Geneva.
I suppose Geneva is a home of the United Nations and all these international organizations. So this one's having a go at the Soviet Union. You know, what are you doing? You know, supporting these oil robber barons. You know, it's taking the. It was Brezhnev, was it? I guess, yeah, was the leader at the time. Marxism, Leninism was very clear on the issue of self-determination. Lenin dealt with it through his book, Critical Marx and the National Question and the Rights to Self-Determination. Yeah. So he's saying to the Russians that you're betraying the legacy of Lenin by opposing a nation's right to self-determination. So the Biafrans were fighting a propaganda war as well as a military war at home. Yeah. Okay.
Viewers, I know now they are coming on Facebook.
Oh, they're coming online.
We have been on this. You want to say something about that?
Oh. What's this? Dear Aidan. So this is a letter from Michael Doheny, priest.
Okay, the priest, brother to Kevin Doheny.
That's right. Yeah. Dear Aidan, and he's the editor of the Evening Herald. Okay. Here within extract from Bishop Whelan's diary. In his letter he added, the fatal air raid which cost us the tragic loss of Mother Cecilia was mean as well as tragic. The pilot was low enough on his first approach to see the sisters getting out of the car. He must have been aware that this was a private car. My brother, who has just returned, writes, there is general disappointment here in Biafra about the small reaction to Sister Cecilia's death. I think that it is surprising that no fuss has been made, no explanation asked or offered. I don't think we can shrug it off by saying there is a war on. Maybe I'm wrong, but the missionaries in the field don't think so. They find it difficult to understand our apparent apathy. Some people say, why make a fuss about one life lost just because she's Irish when thousands of Biafrans and Nigerians die every week? My answer is the life is that of an Irish citizen, a relief worker, a non-combatant. One of that small group, the faithful of the few, who continue to ignore the counsels of prudence and safety in the interests of the people for whom they have served and dedicated their lives. And neither the people of Nigeria or Biafra nor their fellow workers can afford to allow them to be slaughtered without fear of protest from the world. So it's kind of a plea from the...
the nun that died, she was bombed.
Yeah, she was bombed. And you can see that the pilot obviously saw that they were a private
because Egyptian pilots handled... When the war broke out, the Nigerians didn't have qualified pilots. They brought in Arab pilots.
Like Syria with the Russians.
Yeah. So, and seeing that is a non, you know, maybe they just bomb her.
I suppose it's kind of a plea from the priest to an editor of an Irish newspaper. This is an Irish nun. Make an issue of this, please. You know, let the world know. And,
it's terrible. I think, Garrett, maybe we'll call it off from today because I've really taken your time. Viewers, it's been wonderful here with Garrett. I told you they restrict Africa World on Facebook. So this thing started some years back. They keep closing our pages, we keep opening. And when we open page, okay, look at this page now. It has 200 and something thousand followers.
Yeah.
But they keep restricting it.
Yeah.
If you look at it, I'll show you after.
There's only a small number watching.
Yeah, but they won't actually show the exact number of people watching. But all the same, there's no problem. Viewers,
Facebook have a European headquarters in Dublin.
I've been to their office a couple of times.
Yeah.
They're all the same. The Nigerian government, controlled by the Fulanis, have bribed Facebook and Google to stop anything that has to do with Biafra and breakup of Nigeria. So what will you say to cap it off? We have spoken at length, but I love this coverage. All the Biafrans that are following this chart, it's been a free chart. It's a freestyle chart. There's no choreography, no let it be like this or that. We've been having our tea, and Garrett offered me bites, of cake. You can feel it here. You can grab one from the screen if you so wish to do so. So let's have your last statement before we go, because we can talk as generally it's all about your dad and his works. Finally, what would you say finally about your dad, and how will you miss him?
Well, I suppose I'm glad he got out alive, because if you didn't, I wouldn't be here.
Yes. You were born after the Biafra.
Yeah, I was born in 1975.
Okay. You're still a young man.
I might look older, yeah.
You're still a young man. Does your dad have this bad hair?
Yeah.
It runs in the family?
Yeah, baldness runs in the family.
Okay. That's good. So are you as brave as your dad?
Anyway,
I think I should think so. For you to stand for elections, with the Social Democrats.
Yeah, I suppose people just try and do what they can, and I suppose he viewed his trip there, say, or to Israel, other countries, or just as part of work, and that's what he had to do. And I suppose he was interested that there were so many Irish in Biafra and Nigeria at the time, so that was an interesting angle. And then the story of famine, that really impacted the popular consciousness in Ireland. So because 100 years previously there'd been a famine in Ireland, and so Irish people identified with that.
Skibberins.
Yeah, and they saw that people were starving as a result of a blockade, and then funds were raised. So he didn't only report the war, but he tried to raise support for people affected by it. And I suppose that's that's where I'm kind of inspired. Is actually the role of media can be really important.
Yes,
it's not only information, but you can actually make a difference. You don't just watch passively at home or on your phone about what story is on. Read the story or watch the news and think, what can you do? And because that's what happened there. And it was estimated that up to 1 million lives were saved as a result of the airlift.
Yeah, of course, yeah. People like us wouldn't have come out in this world if there wasn't the help of Irish. Generally, do you understand the special relationship between Biafra and Ireland?
Somewhat, yeah. I can guess.
You as a person do understand with the works of your dad, but does this Irish generation do?
No, not at all. There's anyone over the age of maybe 55, 60 will have some notion of Biafra, but not really understand it. They'll understand it that, for example, in the 1980s when I was growing up, starving children of Africa. Eat your dinner, because there's children starving in Africa, and sort of 20 years before that, it was the starving children of Biafra, and so that was how it was received or talked about in the popular consciousness. So how people understood it. So it's not a great impression, but then I suppose my dad at the time, I guess he couldn't have conceived that he'd say, let's say, 1980s or 1960s, that there'd be Nigerians or Biafrans then living in Ireland.
Yeah, exactly.
And now there's quite a substantial population here, because the economy here has changed, and Ireland's position in the world has changed.
Exactly. So, and good at an island position in the world. And let's start from Africa. Finally, what do you think Ireland's position with Africa? Are they really reaping from where they sowed? I know it's not about reaping because Ireland doesn't have that intention, but I'm of the school of thought that believe that Ireland can do more, you understand, in Africa because of its track record in real development, practical development and realities. What do you think? But your government isn't really happy on that.
Yeah.
Does your party have policies?
You need people to have good political understanding, like the general population to have a good political understanding, and then that will be reflected in government. You know, I was kind of struck when I stood as a local election candidate is how disengaged and apathetic people are. So if people are apathetic about the locality and where they live, why are they going to care about what's happening thousands of miles away? So, like, yes, there is Irish aid programs active in different countries around the world, but that's maybe a legacy of past interventions, the likes of Ethiopia or the likes of, you know, the priests in Biafra or the activity of people in South Africa or whatever, or Zimbabwe or Zambia, and those tend to be the countries where say concern is active. So, like, I suppose, you know, as I say, if people are engaged locally here about how things work here, maybe then they can develop a proper understanding, and so the politicians are maybe a reflection of the people as well.
You think so?
Well, if they don't understand, and then the people don't understand, I just know from calling door to door. So sometimes people, they're just, I like that guy, you know, or you know, he or she is local to me, and not actually voting on the basis of this person's political program says X, you know.
Yeah, and the restoration of the Republic of Biafra will open new way for development, industrial development, agricultural development, bilateral relations. Don't you think Ireland stand to gain from the restoration of Biafra? Do you know, I said it before, Ireland, the Irish missionaries actually laid the foundation of Western education in Biafra.
Yeah. My dad was quite surprised when he arrived out there to find the buildings. He was really impressed. Yeah,
because I told you the school I attended, the high school I attended was built by Irish in 1942 at Upper You know, you mentioned there in the newspaper there, and like Father Doheny and his brother.
So some of the anecdotes he had, like, was the stuff that they achieved out there. Why can't they do it here? Because sometimes things seem to be a bit, you know, in a bad state here sometimes. And wow, you know.
Well, Garrett, it's been my pleasure talking to you.
Right.
I know I'm very passionate about issues like this about Africa, and we pray that you bear the loss of your father with fortitude, and may you believe in God. Do you?
You want to turn it off there?
I do.
No, that's good. I respect people, you know, for
well, I'm thinking your dad did a good work.
He had faith, you know.
It's very important. If he doesn't have that kind of good spirit and conscience, he wouldn't just go and start covering news on the less fancied or underdogs in a war, whereby Lucas here risked his life. But at the end of the day, you know, we appreciate what he did, and we pray that his soul will find favor.
Okay.
In our Lord. Thank you very much for talking to us. And do you have any final message for Biafrans who are watching and who will watch this? Because this is a good documentary.
Thank you. I hope you found that interesting. And best wishes to everybody. It's been really good to actually interact with Biafrans in recent years, because it's not known as a country, because it's not on the map. My wife actually works for Google Maps, and so when a country isn't on the maps, then other people don't know about it. So it's how we made the connection was that the Biafrans in Dublin were doing an action outside the GPO, which is in the city centre. It was in September 2017, I think I met them. It was an International Day of Action for Biafra. And we started talking, and then I invited them out to the house to meet my dad, and we had a great interaction. And so it was by people asserting themselves, like so Biafrans in Germany or America, or wherever they are, you can do something, and then you'll actually make connections with people in these countries, because that's how I met them in Dublin, and then we have this whole story.
Okay, thank you very much, viewers. We call it a day. I've been here with Garrett Mullan, son to Des Mullan, the great Irish journalist that just died. He was laid to rest on Monday. Meanwhile, go to YouTube and see. It's a 2 hours long talk and filming of the whole discussion and pictures. And see more stories on africaworldnewspaper.com. Thank you, and God bless you.
All right. Do you do many of those videos, do you? Oh, sorry.